All right, we are live on both YouTube TV and YouTube.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to this evening's meeting on Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee. Before I call the meeting to order, I would want to announce that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak, so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public also will have an opportunity to provide brief comments from the lobby on the municipal office building. I will now call the meeting of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee to order, and I would ask roll call, please.
Roll call. Bryant.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Townsend. Commissioner Townsend, are you on?
I have just received a notice that Commissioner Townsend is having difficulty logging in and hopes to be here shortly.
McKiernan.
Here.
Burroughs.
Here. The first order of business this evening is the revision of the November 29th, 2021 agenda. Staff, would you care to advise us what those revisions might be?
Chairman, are you looking at the November 29th? I don't see any minutes on there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. I apologize. I've got my paper in the wrong place. My apologies. What we have is a revision to the November 29th agenda with approval of standing committee minutes, and there's no committee minutes available. So I had that crossways. Apologies. Thank you, staff. Okay, the first order of business tonight for the committee is item number 1 is an action item. We will have 4 action items this evening and 4 items for information only. Item number 1 is a resolution with the Hudson Apartments LLC IRBs, and these were submitted by Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you so much. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. I am actually going to start off and have the applicant provide a bit of a presentation about the project. I think that's the best way, and then I'll come in and talk about more the specifics of the deal. But this is a project we're really looking forward to. It's at 3600 Rainbow Boulevard. It is a multifamily, as you'll hear more about here in a second, and they are requesting industrial revenue bonds, as we have done with many other multifamily. It's a good way to provide some benefit while being somewhat expeditious about it. So with that, I am going to turn it over. Michael Berenbaum from Lane 4, Brenner Holland from Hunt Midwest, and Kurt Peterson from Polsinelli are all here. I will also just mention that this is a pretty unique project in that, as you can see just from that list, KU Endowment is also involved. This is a project that has really brought together a lot of different folks, which is, I think, pretty exciting and a way to make sure that we're getting the best expertise on a project. So with that, let me share my screen and we will move forward from there. All right, if everyone can see that, I'm going to figure out how to make this full screen.
Catherine, is that my cue?
That is, go for it.
Okay,
I
thank
will
you. My
continue to figure this out.
my feed cut in and out for a moment while I was being promoted to panelist. My name is Michael Berenbaum. I'm the managing partner with Lane 4 Property Group. Thank you for having us here tonight. As Ms. Carter introduced, Lane 4 is partnering on this proposed project with Hunt Midwest and the KU Endowment. Lane 4 is a locally based full-service commercial real estate firm with extensive experience in the Rosedale neighborhood, most notably with the 39 Rainbow Project just to the south of the proposed project here. Our partners at Hunt Midwest are owned by the Hunt family, the owners of our Kansas City Chiefs, and they have a lengthy resume and are quite the experienced and reputable firm. Brenner Holland, who's on the call here today, is their head of residential development for Hunt Midwest. The project that we are proposing and looking forward to sharing with you here tonight is at 3600 Rainbow. You can see the highlighted parcel on Catherine's screen there. It is currently apartments which are in the process of being vacated. Tenants received over a year notice that the project would be demolished as proposed new development will be coming in, and the proposed project is 228 market rate apartments. There'll be 2 stories of structured parking, which will provide all the parking necessary for both residents and guests in this development. And above that 2-story podium will be 5 floors of multifamily units, a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms. There's a couple pictures of the improvements as seen today. Here's the site plan that shows the footprint of the garage. If you're familiar with the site, immediately to the west, there's a big cliff that has a parking lot on top. So we're really constrained by the topography of this site and really doing our best. We've worked closely with the planning staff to get as much density as reasonable onto this site. Keep on flipping through. This is just an example floor plan. There is a central courtyard, which will include a swimming pool, a grilling area. There's a fitness center, a yoga room, a business center / co-working space. We want to appeal both to students and professionals at the medical campus, but also to folks in the wider community. And as more and more people are working from home, we intend to have some spaces within this project to accommodate. We can continue to flip through some of the pretty pictures here. Studio A is our lead designer. They're being supported by BRR Architecture. The pictures really speak for themselves. I'm not an architect, so I won't do it justice to try to articulate all the wonderful finishes and architectural styles, but we're really excited about how this is coming together and the look and feel of the project. There'll be 2 entry points. Here's one of them. This is the main entry, and it's really, we're trying to have a hotel-like feel to the entry here. This is at the northern end of the project. It is at the intersection of 36 and Rainbow at the light. We are not proposing any changes to the intersection or to the light. And then the other entrance will be at the south end of the project and will be a pedestrian entrance. You can see on Catherine's screen here an outdoor patio area. We've worked hard to try to activate the pedestrian experience along Rainbow. And you can see right at the very far left of that picture, the southern entrance. There will be bike storage, bike repair, and other amenities near that entrance, which is just a stone's throw over to the main medical campus on the east side of Rainbow. There's our pool and courtyard, all those happy rendered people enjoying the sun. This is just an initial design, and as we get further into development plans, we'll really dig into the details of how to activate and maximize the use of this space here. And this is the 5th floor amenity lounge. It will have some areas inside where residents and guests can entertain. Residents can entertain their guests. Our architects actually flew a drone up to the height of this amenity and used actual photography to illustrate the views that will be from up here, which are pretty special. If you can imagine how Rainbow goes down the hill there towards the interstate, it really allows for some dramatic perspectives. And I believe that that's it for our renderings. This project achieves a central goal of the Rosedale Master Plan, which is to bring high density housing into the neighborhood, and specifically to the high traffic areas, specifically Rainbow Boulevard, as the appropriate location for this type of development. Infill development is challenging. There's extraordinary costs, specifically the structured parking, as it compares to surface parking at other multifamily developments, and especially in this current environment with what's going on with construction prices and steel prices and procurement of materials. It is a challenging project, but one that we are very excited about, and that is why we've been working with Catherine and her staff on potential IRBs to help make this project a reality. I think you're muted, Catherine. I see your lips moving.
I am muted. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate that overview of this project. Kind of a quick kind of synopsis of what Michael mentioned. I think this is a pretty important project as we look at the Rosedale Master Plan and the University Town District Plan. A real main tenet of both of those plans was that we really focus the density. Density is desired, density is wanted in this area, but that we really focus that up along Rainbow, and then kind of stair step as we get down into the neighborhoods. And looking at this today, 44 units on this large piece of land that is literally a stone's throw away from the KU campus and the hospital, which is, as you all know, 18,000 jobs, that are literally across the street. Having this property only have 44 units that are, fairly old and could use some investment. This really seems not the best use of this property. So I think what this kind of unique joint development venture is proposing is really exciting to us. I think will bring a lot of good energy to this area. Additionally, one of the things that we are interested in is providing people with a diverse set of opportunities, of places to live. We have, I think the commission certainly knows that this neighborhood, Rosedale in general, is majority rental, the single family homes. And if this will kind of help provide people with some different options, maybe they would have, out of lack of possibilities, rented a single family home. Now they can stay at this lovely new apartment, and then perhaps that single family home can get sold and maybe some investment put into it. So we're hoping there's some cyclical nature here that keeps providing additional improvements to the neighborhood. So as Michael mentioned, estimated budget is $48 million for the 228 units. has quite a extensive list of amenities that is sorely lacking in this area. A lot of times what we have heard is if people, are either a resident or a medical student, they will, go live elsewhere, potentially on the Missouri side, rather than live in KCK so that they can get the amenities that they want and that, are kind of expected at this point when it comes to multifamily. So what we are proposing is an industrial revenue bond. This is similar to what you have seen with a number of other projects. Most recently, a mill house project went through, as well as what we've done with many of the Legends apartments. But again, just for those who are tuning in for the first time, potentially, what an industrial revenue bond does is it provides 10 years, 100% abatement. Now, all that means is that it is basically going through kind of the unified government's name to get the project financed, so that they are receiving our tax exemption. However, we're not giving them 100% abatement. That's just kind of the functional kind of process. Then we use what's called a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. And I want to be very clear that this is different from, for all of you Wyandotte County residents, you get your BPU bill and you see that pilot on there. It's the same mechanism. It's the same. It's a payment. Literally, what it is called a payment in lieu of taxes. But this has nothing to do with that. This project will pay their full pilot for the BPU side of things, so that will not be abated at all. But what we use this payment in lieu of taxes is to provide a payment, literally a payment in lieu of taxes. So since they are, fully abated in terms of the property tax, but we are still requiring them to pay what would be kind of comparable taxes. This is a little lower than maybe you've seen in the past for this type of product, and really that is solely because of, as Michael mentioned, there's a lot of extraordinary costs when it comes to infill and demo and structured parking in particular. And so this felt like a really good way to assist with the project while still being pretty well in line with a lot of the other projects that we have done pretty recently. So as I mentioned, this pilot is calculated per door. So it's on average about $1,000 annually per door. So that starts at about $210,000 and goes up every year, goes up by 2%. So over the course of that 10 years, this will be $2.3 million that will come to the unified government. The project is required to have LMW goals for their construction. If they do not meet those goals, there is a penalty, which is a 4% escalator. That being said, we fully anticipate that they would meet their goals, and that will not be an issue. And I would like to always mention that, taken ahead of this, there is actually 8 mills that's statutorily required by the state to go into the school district's capital outlay levy. So that is collected separately and not touched. Just to now also put this into perspective in terms of what is the real benefit. I've kind of thrown a lot of numbers out at you today. This property, and I've kind of mentioned multiple times, 44 units, really underutilizing kind of the space and the location. They are only paying $47,000 in property taxes annually. During these 10 years, even though there is a somewhat of a discount to get this project going, they will be paying over $200,000, $230,000 in payments annually. And then eventually this project will likely be paying, depending on how it's appraised at the end of the 10 years, could be paying upwards of $1 million in property taxes is potential. Additionally, the sales tax generation for this area would be great. You've got the 39th and Rainbow just a couple blocks away, bringing more people that can easily walk over there and patronize, Bangkok Kitchen and all the good food over there is really helpful. So that's what we're anticipating and presenting to you today. The anticipated start of construction would be fall of 2022 with about a 24-month build time, and anticipate that there would be a full building and stabilized rent by spring of 2025. And I'm kind of betting that they get this done even faster than that. So here is just for a kind of a snapshot what that pilot schedule looks like, with both the those first two columns are the annual pilot, assuming that all goes according to plan. Then if they do not get the LMW, then that's the penalizing couple columns on the right, and then your LMW goals there at the bottom. So if there are any questions, happy to discuss. Also, we are requesting that this is fast-tracked to Thursday, to December 2nd, so that it can stay online with their planning approval. So they have already been to Planning Commission. That will be going to full commission on Thursday. So we'd like to try and keep those together if possible. And those, all the public notices have already gone out. So we're ready for anything. But with that, any questions? We'll stop talking.
Committee questions? I see Commissioner Townsend has joined us. Good evening, Commissioner. Commissioner Townsend, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to all. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Ms. Carter, good evening. I only have one question. I noticed that there was an escalator for failure to meet the LMWBE goals, but I didn't notice that escalator, that there was any added for the first year. So I was wondering why not.
That's a good question. I mean, I guess that's just kind of typically how I've calculated it, that first year is you kind of start at the same point, and then it escalates from there. You can certainly look into that in the future. If you're thinking that because if they've already, we would have known at that point. Is that what you're thinking, that we would have known at that point if they've made it or not?
Yes. Yeah, because either you make it or you don't each year. So
right. Well, it's a one-time. I mean, you make it. It's all construction based. So it's not. Oh, this year we do 4%. This year we do 2%. It's you either make it that first year with your construction, and then that puts you on a path.
Okay, well, I don't know if we're saying the same thing or not. If you make the goal for the year, there's no escalator. If you don't, it seems like there should be some recourse, or I hate to use the word penalty, but that's what it is. So I just don't understand why there's not one for that first year. On the
again, so it's not a year by year. So either you hit your goals or you do not. So the penalty is actually almost $50,000 for the 10 years.
Catherine, if the commissioner wants, I could always chime in too.
Yeah, please.
Like, Commissioner, my recollection is in working with Ms. Carter and her predecessor, because this is how, best of my recollection, I was just scrambling and looking. I think, quote unquote, we've always done it just like this. I think the original reasoning had to do with this. By the way, this developer has every intention in the world and has put in hours and hours already with compliance. to make sure that these goals were met. So this is more academic to answer your question here. But I think the reason the first year was the same in both scenarios is that there's a lot that goes into setting that operating budget, including with the bank for that first year, right? When you come out of the gate. So I think having that number be fixed and known going into that first operating year. And then as Catherine said, if any given developer didn't meet the LMW goals, or at least have good faith efforts, right, pursuant to the agreement, then it gives them a year then after that moment of finishing the project to figure out where to have cost cuts on the operating expenses or things like that. Now, Catherine's recollection may be different, but that's my best recollection going back, whatever it's been now, a decade, 8 years, 10 years, something like that. So if that helps.
Well, thank you, Council. I must admit, it doesn't help for me. It might be something I'm missing here. I just don't recollect on similar projects or past projects for development where we've had goals that there was a grace period, so to speak. So maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I mean, this is how we've done it every project, at least that I'm aware of since I've been here for 4 years. This is how it's been calculated.
Commissioner Townsend, if I may, this is again Commissioner Burroughs at large District 2. Commissioner, we may want to have a meeting and with council and Catherine to determine moving forward, if this gets to the crux of your question, to determine if there's changes needed or necessary. I believe you have a very important point to bring forward here, that we want to ensure that these numbers are, one, attainable, and two, maintained once they are negotiated. So I might suggest that Commissioner, that you reach out to Catherine and council and have a discussion as to how we move forward on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take you up on that, and shame on me if I haven't seen that before, because I'm usually very keen to look at these numbers. So thank you. I'll follow up on that.
Commissioner Walters.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that I am impressed with the project. I think it'll be a great improvement to the Rainbow Corridor. For those who might be concerned about density, I think you look at 80th and Metcalf and the density of apartments that are being built there. You might surmise that that's evidently what the market is supporting and demanding. So I'm glad that we have that opportunity to do it here in Wyandotte County. With that, I would like to move that we approve this proposal and fast track it to Thursday night's meeting.
Johnson, second.
Sorry, we have a motion and a second, but before I accept that, I need to ask the clerk if there's any other questions from commission, and if not, do we have any comments from the public?
No public comments were received.
Thank you. Committee, we do have a motion and a second. At this time, I'd ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye. Committee, that takes us to item number 2, resolution of the state revolving loan approval. This is a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for a loan under the Kansas Water Pollution Control Revolving Fund Act, known as WIFIA, submitted by Jeff Fisher, Public Works Director, and Sarah Schaefer, Project Engineer. This item too has been requested to be fast-tracked to the full commission on December 2nd. So at this time, I believe I'll be recognizing Sarah Schaefer as well as Jeff Fisher.
Good evening. It's Sarah Schaefer, Unified Government Public Works, CMIP Program Manager. I will set up my screen share. One moment.
All right, thank you for your time tonight. We will be going over the resolution authorizing the application of state revolving funds for up to $70,740,790 for the community-based stormwater program, the WIFIA projects. A little bit of our agenda: the stormwater program overall, our SRF application, the projects to be included in the SRF application, cost estimates. We'll be going over each one of those briefly and more in depth, and then the resolution for authorizing. So the community-based partnership for stormwater program, our WIFIA project, it's our Kansas City, Kansas community-based partnership. So it has the focus of repairs, replacements, rehabilitations of critical infrastructure related to wastewater and stormwater. It includes our combined sewers, our sanitary sewers, culverts, curbs, and gutters. It also addresses projects that are within our consent decree with the EPA and our CSOs in these specific watershed areas that are highlighted on the screen. Our program approach includes unique and innovative approaches to stormwater and again, moves our goals for combined sewers up in timeline. So we have green infrastructure. We also have our stormwater management assets in order for us to understand and identify and address damages and infrastructures. Additionally, complete streets and transportation management is also included within the projects listed, and our capital maintenance catalogs. So this is to optimize the programmatic approach and moving forward with our stormwater program. So what we invest now will be continuing to work in place for years to come. The SRF application is a state revolving fund application, and it can provide the funding assistance that we need in order to meet our goals with the WIFIA community-based partnership program. We applied in January of 2021 in order to understand our capabilities with our WIFIA program as well. And so we're moving forward with the state revolving fund request application as part of those matching funds. So the WIFIA community-based partnership program is $170 million, and 70-ish million of those dollars is what we as the unified government have as our matching funds. So the projects included in this particular application are as follows. We will go through each one of these individually in the following slides. So our Argentine 1 project is the construction of new stormwater infrastructure. The site is directly adjacent to the Kansas River and is bordered by 7th Street. So this is the downstream area. The construction complete is the 2023, and it's approximately $6.7 million. Our Jersey Creek 1 project is construction of new stormwater infrastructure. It is located within the Jersey Creek boundaries, and it is the outfall area adjacent to the Missouri River. Our construction complete is anticipated at 2023 and approximately $2.7 million. Our Muncie 1 is a replacement of our outfall structure and upsizing of sewers to address drainage issues. It's located south of Kaw Valley and west of the Kansas River. We anticipate that construction to be complete in 2027 with an estimated current cost of $4.3 million. Our Tract 422 green infrastructure, it's our green stormwater infrastructure improvement road in the Clifton Park area. It's located on Park Drive and Clifton Park. Construction complete is anticipated to be 2026 with a $1.1 million investment. Our CSO 16 sewer separation. So this is one of our projects that is to separate sewer that is currently combined sewer. So it's installing storm sewer and sanitary sewer. It's located within the Condor Boulevard area, north of Parallel Parkway and 12th Street. Our construction complete is anticipated to be 2027 with a construction estimate of $4.7-ish million. CSO 19 sewer separation, another one of our combined sewer areas so we will be installing storm sewer and sanitary sewer. It's located on Walker Avenue to the north, Minnesota and Grandview on the south, 7th Street to the east, and 13th Street to the west. Construction complete would be approximately 2026 with $12.8 million as the estimate. CSO 55 sewer separation and green infrastructure. So the sewer separation is to install sewer, storm, and green infrastructure to address the sewer separation and capacity issues in the area. It's Garfield Avenue on the north, Grandview Boulevard to the south, Westview Drive to the west, and North 11th Street to the east. Construction is 2027 anticipated completion with approximately $21 million of investment. The bridge and culvert repairs. So this is our rehabilitation and replacement of our aging culverts within the watersheds. Over 6 miles of culverts have been located within these particular watersheds of interest within our application package. They're inspected on a 4-year rotation. Each culvert will be identified for replacement or repair. The approximate cost is $10.8 million. Curb and gutter annual repairs. So this project includes repair of curb and gutter as part of the overall mill and overlay pavement preservation program. The maps for these areas are part of our 2020 and 2021, but we will be using pavement locations for the 2022 year. Construction complete would be anticipated to be 2027 over these particular years at $6.7 million. So those are our 9 projects overview. So the project cost estimates and the rates. So the total of 9 projects is at $70,740,790. And that is part of the overall stormwater program, which includes funding from other sources of that $130 million. So those other sources would be what we have for our budget, as well as other debt authorizations that we have for our projects within the sewer rates, which would include both storm and wastewater, as well as our pavement preservation, our road and bridge. So at this time, again, thank you for allowing me to present on the state revolving funds, the community-based partnership for stormwater, our WFIA program. So this resolution would be authorizing the application of state revolving funds for up to that $70,740,790 to support our cost share of that WFIA program. And that's the end of my presentation. So if there's any questions or comments, I do have Josh Tedder with Black and Beach available, as well as Troy Shaw available.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate the presentation. It's quite a large number to take in one setting, the cost of the infrastructure for our community. These projects were set forth by the engineering department.
The projects as identified for the WFIA, the community-based stormwater program, they were set forth based upon we had a handful of reports and we had executive committees. We also had committees within each department that would be affected, such as finance, planning and zoning, public works, water pollution control, to identify which projects would move forward to make the most well-rounded package for our WFIA application. That WFIA letter of intent application went out, and then we were awarded the opportunity for the WFIA program, and then we applied. We did our pre-application for our state revolving funds.
Okay. Thank you. So if we take any action tonight, just advance this resolution. We're not by any chance, we're not approving, but just advancing the resolution this evening, right? To apply?
Correct. The request is to advance the resolution to apply for the state revolving funds of up to that maximum amount. The entire WFIA program, as well as the value of our state revolving funds application, would be dependent upon the stormwater rate, which is also up on Thursday.
Right, the stormwater rate hasn't been approved or accepted at this time by the commission. It's been proposed, but we've also had an alternative proposal submitted for the commission's discussion. I just wanted to ensure that those listening this evening understood that we were taking, the only action that we're taking is advancing the resolution, the opportunity for the resolution to go before the full commission. And if that's incorrect, please correct me.
No, we're requesting, I'm requesting to move forward the resolution of authorizing the application for up to that $70 million value.
Great. Commission, any questions? I see Patrick Waters' hand. Patrick, I apologize. I just turned on my participant panel, so please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let the committee know that should you advance the item, there are a few clerical corrections that we will make to the resolution prior to Thursday, but the substance will remain the same.
Do any of those clerical changes happen to do with the value or the cost or long-term?
No, just some grammatical issues and, and formatting issues.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Will we need to do that in the motion? We can combine that in with the motion, I guess, that all clerical updates can be completed at that time.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I see Commissioner Walters.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions. So we have a proposal that we apply for this loan. And if it is approved, what is the next step? Will the commission have to take action to actually follow through with the loan, or will that be a staff matter, or just what is the process beyond this week?
Commissioner Walters, this is Patrick Waters, Legal Department. I believe I can answer. If the loan were approved, then the commission would have to vote to actually accept the loan. This is just to make the application.
Okay, great. A second question. When in your presentation, you talked about other sources of funding, and those sources are all internal, as I understood your presentation. So for example, the CMIP funds that you said would be used for this matching expenditure, is that something that is in the CMIP 5-year plan now, or is that something that would be redirected, or is that new money that's going to be added to the CMIP, or just where is that money coming from?
The projects are currently within the CMIP. We've placed them in there. There is the caveat that it is dependent upon the stormwater rate approval. So this list is built assuming that the full value would be funded in the stormwater rate. If it is not funded, then this list would be reduced in size and the program would be shifted in order to meet our budgetary criteria.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walters, those were really pointed questions. It led me to one more question, if I may, Sarah. What is the length of the loan on these applications? When you talk about not raising enough revenue to possibly cover the projected projects, but what is the length of time for this loan?
I am getting some dates or lengths mixed up. So if I could ask Josh to join in, or someone from finance to speak specifically to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, this is Kathleen Von Atchen, the CFO. So at the moment, SRF loans are limited to 20 years in length for wastewater and stormwater projects. Next year, when the legislative session, starts, we are hoping that you'll support a legislation that would extend the term to 30 years, but at the moment it's only 20 years.
Thank you, Kathleen, for that. I just wanted to ensure that we have a length of time for payback on that amount of money. So basically, we're talking a 20-year. What would be the annual yearly payment? I'm sure that would be discussed later on at the full commission meeting. I would ask that figure be given to us as to what our monthly payments would be, or yearly payment would be, to pay back that loan at the requested amount over
You
the
bet.
requested period of time.
Okay.
And this
All
is
right.
Sarah Schaefer, CMIP Program Manager again. So I believe we can put together those annual payments, but again, we'd be assuming full funding on that. And also something to consider with the state revolving funds, we do have a portion of it being eligible for loan forgiveness at this time. So we are excited for that particular piece as well. And that comes with just our timeline and our partnerships that we have on this project.
Great, Sarah, thank you. Any other questions, committee? This is an action item, committee. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Commissioner McKiernan, I apologize.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. I would move that we approve this item and fast track to the December 2 commission meeting, understanding that, well, with the understanding that I am confident that the commission will at that time also approve a mechanism that would adequately fund our part in order to support these loans.
Johnson, District 4, second.
We have a motion and a second. Before I do that, any other commissioners have comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask staff, do we have any comments from the public?
No public comments were received.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Okay, I would ask the clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye. And committee, I know it was stated, we have full confidence that we'll be passing something Thursday night. I don't know if that will be the case, but I know there will be discussion. I supported the motion because it just advances the resolution, not because we'll come into an agreement on Thursday night. I believe that that is a discussion that will be had by the full commission. But I do believe this will go on the consent calendar, because we didn't separate. And I wanted to have that discussion, but I know we'll be discussing the other portion of that Thursday evening. So I just appreciate the committee's work and comments. Thank you. Okay,
Chairman.
that moves us on to item number 3.
Chairman Burroughs.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move to item number 3, just as a clarification, because we're fast tracking this item to this Thursday, it will be placed on the standing committee agenda, whereby discussion will take place.
Great, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. I figured it would go straight onto the consent calendar. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move on to item number 3. This is a presentation and resolution for the cash and investment policy. Presentation of the Unified Government's cash and investment policy with no changes in consideration of a resolution adopting said policy. And I believe we have Andrea Parr, our interim county treasurer. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Good evening. Andrea Parra, interim county treasurer. Go ahead and share my screen. I have a very, very brief presentation. Hold on, Biddy. Sorry, I have my son.
That's quite all right.
All I have to do today, like the description said, we do go through the annual review of the cash and investment policy. It's what includes its policy and procedures for responsible management of our funds. Additionally, we use this policy to have a review to submit with our application to the state of Kansas for expanded powers, which allows us to go out for investments up to 4 years. Again, just want to make note that we had no changes for this policy as presented through our cash management committee prior to this meeting, and just request approval and moving forward.
Committee comments, questions? Sorry, I'm having trouble. I see Commissioner Townsend has her hand raised. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Good evening, Ms. Para.
Good evening.
Some years ago, I may have asked this question because this submission or request comes up periodically. But who is on the cash management committee?
Sure. So we have Kathleen Von Etchen, CFO, then the county treasurer. Then you have the accounting director, which would be another position. Cash manager would be a position. Then we also have the clerk and someone from legal and also someone from the legislative auditor's office.
Okay. And the policy, it says here, was reviewed by that committee. Was that done within the last, what period of time?
Within the last 30 days, if not sooner. We review this prior to bringing it forth to make sure that we don't have any things that we want to correct before bringing the final document to you all.
Okay. And so from this, it was the recommendation of that group that no changes to the policy be made.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend. Any other questions or comments? Committee, this was for information only. If there's no other questions or comments, Andrea, thank you so very much for your presentation. This was not an action item, as I stated. That allows us to move on to item number 4.
Chairman Burroughs, this
Yes.
is an actionable item. It's a resolution.
I did not, it wasn't listed here. My apologies. Thank you, Carol. That's what I love about staff staying on top of things. Thank you. This being an action item, I would ask, is there any comment from the public?
No public comments were received.
Okay. Committee, I stand corrected. This is an actionable item. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Townsend, move to approve the resolution as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. I need a second.
McKiernan, District 2, second.
Thank you, committee. We have a motion and a second for approval. I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye. Again, thank you, Ms. Barr. Appreciate the review this evening. And committee, thank you for your support of advancing the issue, the resolution. Item number 4 is the sale resolution. This is the 2022-A bonds and 2022-I temporary notes. This is a resolution offering the sale of municipal temporary notes and general obligation bonds of the unified government, Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, submitted by our Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Debbie Johnson. So, Ms. Johnson, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. I do have a short presentation, so I will just give me a second to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So as I said, this is a resolution authorizing the sale of municipal temporary notes and general obligation bonds for the unified government. Did just want to note that Included in your sale resolution is a list of all of the projects that could potentially be included in the financing. We have tax levy projects totaling $55,142,000 and enterprise fund projects totaling $108,537,000. The enterprise fund would be sanitary sewer and stormwater projects for a total of $163,679,000. I did just want to note that each project can only have debt issued up to the amount approved, and that takes into account any previous bondings or temp notes, the current financing, and any potential future bondings. Did want to talk a little bit about reimbursement resolutions. Reimbursement resolutions are resolutions where projects are, when we issue debt projects, we have to identify the location and the work to be done. Some projects, when we go to financing, we're not able to identify all of that information. A lot of this is on the annual projects. So we don't, we issue a reimbursement resolution, and then once the project is identified, then we would issue the funding during the next issuance. So I did just want to note the top table here are the 2021 reimbursement resolutions. These were not included in the 2021 financing. However, they were approved by the projects were approved by the commission. So all of these projects in the top table are being included in the current sale resolution for 2022. The bottom table is the 2022 reimbursement resolutions that are not being financed. So they are not currently included in the project list that you have in your resolution. Once the work, the projects were authorized when we approved the budget, as were all the CMIP projects. So the department can proceed with issuing contracts and identifying the work, and then these projects would be funded during the next financing. A couple of projects did want to note that are not included in your sale resolution. The first one is the Public Building Commission project for the West Annex. This was, you'll see it identified in the 2021 amended. It was included in the 2021 original budget. However, it was not financed for $190,000, and it is currently not included in the 2022 bond issue. Also, we have a couple of sanitary sewer projects totaling $73.5 million. We have the Cobb Point biosolids digestion and the green infrastructure improvements. And I just noted for Cobb Point, the budget is from 2019 to 2022. This was a multi-year budgeted project, and we do have money in the current financing issue for the Cobb Point. I think it's about $8 million, but this is budget that has been previously approved by the commission, but we're not issuing. We currently look at the projects and try to determine how much is going to be spent within the next 12 months. And so this is budget that has been approved, but we're not ready to spend it yet. So the green infrastructure is in the 2022 budget at $5 million. This next slide is just a reconciliation for the sale resolution. It starts out where we were last year at this time when we approved the 2021 sale resolution. You can see you approved a sale resolution of $158 million in potential projects. When we issued temporary notes and bonds in 2021, we actually only issued about $94.1 million. So there was $64 million in projects that were authorized, but we did not issue the funding because we didn't think we could spend it within the next 12 months. So the reconciliation going down, the temporary notes that were issued in 2021 are rolled over, and they will either be financed with another one-year temporary note or go to permanent financing. And then we've also added in those reimbursement resolutions from 2021 that I talked about. We had a little bit of an increase in 2021 amended for, I think, a couple of CMIP projects. I've included the 2022 CMIP projects for debt, as well as projects authorized but not issued includes budgets that were approved where we did not issue financing. And then what I've done is subtracted out the 2022 reimbursement resolutions that were not financing, as well as the projects I just showed that were not included in the sale resolution. So that brings us down to our total. The tax levy projects at 55.1 million, enterprise at 108.5 for a total of 163.679. This is just our tentative calendar for our 2022 bond and temporary note sale. We're at the standing committee on November 29th. If approved, it would move on to the December 16th commission meeting. We will be working over the next couple of months to prepare for the sale. We'll hold ratings calls in February, and then we will hold the sale tentatively scheduled for February of 2022 with a closing in March, and then we will redeem the 2021 temporary notes on April 1st. That concludes the presentation. We are asking for approval of a resolution to move forward with the sale of temporary notes and bonds. And I can answer any questions if there are.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Committee, any questions of Ms. Johnson? Any questions of legal in reference to the resolution? Okay, I don't see any. Ms. Gotzel, do you see any hands?
There are no hands from the commissioners nor from the public, and we have not received any public comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's our little Radar O'Reilly there. That's awesome. Let's move forward with a motion.
Motion to approve as submitted, Johnson.
Townsend, Commissioner, District 1, second.
Thank you, committee. We do have a motion and a second for approval of item number 4, and that's the sale resolution of bonds and temporary notes. At this time, I'd ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for the overview this evening.
Thank you.
That will take us to item number 5. This is a resolution with Visit Kansas City, Kansas documents. This is a resolution approving of the 2022 budgeting, marketing plan, and new 5-year agreement between the unified government and Visit Kansas City, Kansas, submitted by Kathleen Von Atchen, our Chief Financial Officer. Kathleen, I believe you will be doing the presentation this evening.
Thank you. This is Kathleen Von Atchen, CFO. I've been working with Alan Carr on this presentation, and I believe he will be joining us here.
Wonderful. Mr. Carr, welcome.
In fact, he was on 2 seconds ago. Oh, here he is.
Yeah, he's muted. And we lost him again.
Hi, sorry about that. They just promoted me on here. Yeah, let me I have a couple quick slides to share with you to talk a little bit about what we've been doing here at Visit Kansas City, Kansas. To start off with, I think it's always helpful to see where things stand in terms of tourism here in Kansas City, Kansas. And we really, one of the best ways we can do that is look at how our hotels are performing. As everyone's aware, we're coming out of a dark time for tourism here in Kansas City, Kansas, and everyone really with COVID. But we've seen some really positive signs in the last couple months. This shows you the hotel occupancy, the number of hotel rooms that are filled. The gray line is 2019, the blue line is the current year, and the orange line was last year in 2020. And I think the really positive sign is as you look into the summer months, we really started to approach 2019 levels, and that's been really positive. Now we have seen, since kids have gone back to school, we've seen a little bit more separation, and I think as there's been some additional spikes in COVID, I think there's been a little more caution, but hotel occupancy has been trending well. On the rate side, the amount of money that hotels are charging, that's been a totally different story. Since summer, we've actually exceeded 2019 rates. There's been a lot of demand out there, and hotels have been taking advantage of that to make up for those huge losses in revenue that they experienced in 2020. But really, since June, our hotel rates have been above 2019 levels. And that has been a great story for our hotel revenue here in Wyandotte County. You can see in 2020, hotels had about $28 million in hotel revenue. This year, we are at about 46 million in hotel revenue. This is through October 31st. So we're up 63% over last year. And I think what's really positive is we're only down about 6% from 2019 levels. And really every month since July, we've actually been above 2019 levels. So we're really seeing a great rebound. And we have been working to take that demand and convert more of those visitors here into Kansas City, Kansas over the last couple of years. As I'm sure you're aware, since I started in 2020, we changed our name to Visit Kansas City, Kansas. We also launched a new brand. Earlier this year, we launched a new website, which was quite a big undertaking. And we're really working as part of our story that we're telling about Kansas City, Kansas, to really talk about all of the neighborhoods and all of the experiences that you can have through Kansas City, Kansas. And one of the ways we've been doing that is through some product development. Part of this will be, hopefully you're all familiar with, is the Taco Trail that we launched last year. This was an initiative to get visitors to go and experience the great taquerias all throughout the community. This has been a much bigger success than we ever anticipated. To date, we've had over 11,000 people sign up for the Taco Trail through the online pass. To give you some perspective, the platform we use to host this, their average for a trail is about 2,000 people. So we have quite blown away what they normally see, and that's translated into more than 17,000 people checking in to about the 50 restaurants that are on our trail, and getting out and exploring all of the neighborhoods throughout Kansas City, Kansas to check out those businesses. We've had people visit every restaurant. In fact, we've had about a dozen people that have visited all 50 restaurants and completed the trail over the last year. Coming up, we're working on our second trail that we are in final stages of development, and we hope to launch in early 2022. And this is the KCK Legacy Trail. This is going to be more of a heritage-based trail that's going to allow visitors to follow the journeys of the main groups that settled Kansas City, Kansas. So we'll be taking people through the various neighborhoods of Kansas City, Kansas, and sharing history, stories, historic places, and historic people of Kansas City, Kansas. We're also working on the sports side. We know sports is very important, especially youth tournaments, sports tournaments, and professional sports. We've worked on a sports study this year and are forming a new sports advisory committee that will launch early next year. We also know that tourism jobs, like many industries, have been hard hit, and tourism jobs especially have been hard hit. And so we've actually launched a hospitality job board that we're working with tourism partners, hotels, and restaurants throughout Wyandotte County to help promote and advertise for those jobs that are available here in Wyandotte County, so we can help fill more of those positions. This all goes into what our long-term strategic priorities are, and you have our marketing plan in your packet. But just to summarize briefly what that is, there's really three big picture things that we try to focus on in promoting tourism here in the county. The first is to increase visitors into Kansas City, Kansas through marketing those things that I was showing you, as well as attracting sporting events, meetings, and conventions. We also want to make sure that when people are here enjoying their time, that they have a good experience. And so we have a part of our team that works on welcoming visitors, providing them information while they're here, providing amenities to groups. And then we're working on those product development things like the trails, the Taco Trail, and those things, so that there's some great opportunities for people to enjoy while they're here. And finally, we also know it's really important to have a strong tourism industry, and that we have an industry that's aligned with the community and the vision that the community has. So we've been really stepping up our outreach to neighborhood groups to stakeholders throughout the community to make sure that the vision of what we're promoting and the story we're telling really aligns with the rest of the community. As part of our 5-year plan in preparation for this new contract, we've looked at kind of big initiatives going forward. And I won't go through all of these, but we've really made a transition over the last couple of years from being this kind of small tourism organization into operating like a larger tourism organization. So we've professionalized some of the services, increased our ability to track and get data about what we're doing. As I shared, launched a new brand. We've added a community engagement manager this last year to help get out there and interact with the community and work on those initiatives that we have in common. Coming forward next year, we're working on better telling our story in the region, in the Kansas City metro area. We're doing that. We're partnering with Kansas City Restaurant Week to try to get more attention to restaurants here in Kansas City, Kansas. We are a sponsor and are working with the Parade of Hearts that in the spring we'll be putting hearts all over the metro area, including many we hope and know will be here in Kansas City, Kansas. So it's great ways for us to get involved in those initiatives. We're also working in the future on looking at our location and our visitor center to make sure we're in the right place to interact with the most visitors into our community. We're going to be advocating for developing a tourism master plan for Kansas City, Kansas to make sure there's alignment about how we develop as a destination going forward. We know on the sports side, we want to work with our surrounding communities along the 435 corridor, and that there's a great opportunity to attract a lot of big events within the region going forward. And then, of course, as we get to the end of this new contract period in 2026, we hope that we'll be very busy working on initiatives around the World Cup if the Kansas City metro area is successful in attracting that event here. In terms of 2022, you have the budget that we've submitted in front of you that's been approved by our board of directors. We really, in working with the UG, we have a level budget this year, based on where things have been with tourism. So we really had to kind of, with what we're seeing in inflation and some of our insurance costs, kind of sharpen our pencils and look at kind of some key projects to work on. But I think we've come up with what we believe will be a really good budget for us to continue some of these initiatives to help move us forward, continuing to spend the majority of our money in marketing and sales of Kansas City, Kansas. We have, you'll see an increase in our operations budget. This is related to some exploration of potentially a new office location as soon as 2023, as well as just some increased technology costs and some of those types of expenses that we've had as our employees have converted into remote work. And then, as I said, you have in the packet kind of an outline of where our money goes in each of these categories, focusing on sales and marketing. And I'm happy to turn it back over to Kathleen to answer any questions or continue.
Kathleen? Thank you,
No, I
Alan.
don't have any questions. Thank you, Alan, for making that presentation. We're happy to answer any questions of the committee.
Okay. Committee, any questions? I do see Commissioner Johnson's hand up. Please, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Harold Johnson, District 4. I'm just wondering, Mr. Carr, you've given us the 2021 budget and the 2022 budget. Have you been able to provide or are you able to provide any sense of how you have done in terms of actuals year to date, whether that be through 3 quarters or through 10 months or however you would analyze that? I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's been an interesting time period, on the convention sales side, for example. Conventions and meetings just aren't happening right now. So it's been quite interesting for our sales team. They continue to develop those relationships. But we are nowhere near where we'd want to be in terms of attracting meetings and events, new meetings and events into the community. I know as part of our we will be providing you with year-end figures once we close out 21, and I think we come back and do that formal presentation to you. I think it's usually in the spring to share kind of how all the numbers turned out. But as I said, I think we're seeing strong interest. Our website, for example, we saw record numbers, believe it or not, during 2020. This had a little bit to do with us relaunching the site and being a little more aggressive in some of our advertising than some of our partners, and that's been paying some dividends for us, I think, in what we've seen in our hotel visitation compared to other communities in the region.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner, I believe Commissioner Townsend, I'm sorry, I got late turning my thing. It's either you or Mr. Bryant.
It's Mr. Bryant.
Okay,
ahead
thank
of
you.
me.
Mr. Bryant.
Yeah, so, thank you very much for the presentation, Alan. It was very positive to see that we've rebounded so well. I know tourism took a massive hit the first year of the pandemic, and it's also nice that, while a lot of us over the years have always wondered why KCK, doesn't pull in more conventions, why we didn't build a convention center and things. When you look at the way tourism destinations in KCK are more family oriented, so therefore we stay busy even when, large gatherings are kind of prohibitive. So I look forward to seeing 2022, bounce back even beyond what 2019 was.
Thank you. Yeah, we certainly, our product is all about the leisure traveler. And that especially is a lot of families. We do really well with youth sports, whether it's events that are actually hosted here in Wyandotte County, or we also get a lot of families that stay with us that attend events at Hy-Vee Arena that are there for tournaments there, events that are down in Shawnee at Mid-America Ballpark. We see a lot of those families staying at our hotels as well.
That was all from me, Commissioner Townsend. It's your turn.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Bryant. Appreciate it. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Good evening, Mr. Carr.
Hi.
I had just two questions about the breakout of a couple of the marketing and program expenses that have been itemized on the budget list. The first is the Event Opportunity Fund grants, and that's budgeted at $100,000. What is that exactly?
Yeah, so this was a new addition that preceded me joining the organization that we worked out with the UG to provide incentives for meetings and events to come into Kansas City, Kansas. So as we're working with sports tournaments, events, meetings or conventions, a lot of communities have a fund available where they can provide financial cash incentives to those events to come into Kansas City, Kansas. So our contract was amended, I believe, in 2020 or 2019, and we received that first payment in 2020. And it's funds that we can use and award to attract meetings in meetings and events into Wyandotte County. We have awarded so far 4 of those grants totaling approximately $30,000. 2 of those were for catfish tournaments, like actual fishing tournaments that took place at Caw Point. And I believe one of them still has some events coming up in 2022. And with all of these awards that we do, there are metrics and goals that those events must achieve related to hotel room nights. And so in order to get the full payment from us, there's kind of a sliding scale, and they have to meet those room night goals of getting room nights in Kansas City, Kansas before they'll get those full payments.
Okay, so would the payments be the same for each event predicated on what you just said about meeting the number of hotel night goals?
So it's going to be individual to each group, and the way we have worked with the UG to award these grants is they have to be approved by our board of directors. So we'll submit a proposal to our board of directors for that event, and then as I said, we'll award those funds based on them achieving their goals. So for example, I think the ones that we've awarded have been anywhere from I think there was. And I don't have this right in front of me, but I think there was a basketball tournament that was bringing in significant out-of-town visitors that I think was up to $10,000, depending on the number of actual room nights. I think that may be closer to 5,000 in what they actually achieve that they'll be getting. The catfish tournament was a series of 4 tournaments that took place throughout 2020 and 2021, and I think they were eligible for up to, I believe, $20,000 based on that event and their room nights generated.
Okay, and one last question about these: how is the event organizer or made aware of these fund grants, and are they eligible for any type of event that comes in?
Yeah, so our criteria is simply, it's based on bringing economic impact into Kansas City, Kansas, and into Wyandotte County, and we primarily look at that through hotel utilization and bringing an event that will bring visitors that use hotels, and so we are promoting that as we're working with these, especially sports events planners. That's where we've seen the most opportunity. That's where we attract the most groups. But as long as it's going to bring room nights in, we would be happy for people to reach out to our sales team, and we can kind of walk them through that process and the metrics that we would need to get that application to present it to the board.
Okay, so anybody might be eligible. It just depends on how many room nights may be associated with their event.
Correct.
Okay, all right. The one last item in the expense group, I see you have a separate line item for advertising. And then when you come down to neighborhoods and trails, what is that about, and how is that expenditure different than what you're doing in the advertising line?
Yeah, so our neighborhoods and trails line item, that's a somewhat new line item we've added over the last couple of years, and this is related to those virtual trails development that I mentioned, the taco trail. So our expenses around that, what we've tried to do is break out advertising. So anytime we do advertising, we put that into our advertising line item. Any kind of program and development costs or ongoing costs would go into that neighborhoods and trails item. We also have, in addition to those virtual trails, that currently there's a taco trail, and then we've been working this year on the development of the legacy trail. We also have a program called Guide by Cell. So you may see it at our major attractions throughout the county. I believe there's about 12 actual physical signs at those locations with a phone number, and a person can call that phone number and get about a 1-minute tour of that location. So those expenses also go into that line item.
Okay, so it's more about programs above and beyond just advertising.
Correct. Yeah, programs that would bring visitors into our neighborhoods is what we focus on there.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? I don't see any other hands. Ms. Gottsel, do you see any hands raised?
No hands raised, and we received no comments from the public.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Okay, committee, this is an action item. This is our last action item of the evening. I would entertain a motion.
McKiernan, District 2, move to approve as submitted.
Townsend, District 1, second.
Thank you, committee. I would ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye. Thank you, committee, for that. And Alan, congratulations. I look forward to continued marketing within Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. It's important that we compete with others within the metropolitan area and across the nation to ensure that we get our fair share of the economic opportunities that come with travel. So thank you. Okay, item number 6. This will be the third quarter budget revisions. This is anything over 10,000, and that'll be submitted this evening, I believe, by Reginald Lindsay.
Actually, Commissioner, this is Debbie Johnson, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I'm going to present this item tonight.
Wonderful. Debbie, please.
Getting my screen shared here. Okay, so tonight, this item is, as you said, for the third quarter budget revisions. Here we go. And I'll just remind you of the budget policy, that any revisions over 10,000 are approved by the County Administrator's Office and are presented to the Economic Development and Finance Committee on a quarterly basis. If the revision is over 50,000 and is needed to sustain ongoing operations, then it is also sent to the mayor and then brought to the next quarterly ED&F meeting. If it's over 50,000 and it's not needed to sustain operations, then it's required to be reviewed by the commission. So I've up on the screen here, I've got the revisions. I've got two screenshots here. The top one is budget revisions ranging from 10,000 to 50,000. You can see there are 5 revisions totaling just under 140,000, showing when those revisions were approved. All of these revisions were done within the department budget. And shows what the description of what the revision was for. The second table is revisions greater than 50,000. And as you can see, there are also 5 revisions there. Total of all 5 revisions is 778,000. The first 2 revisions were moves within the department budget, and it looks like the items 3, 4, and 5 were all done outside. So I believe that requires budget being pulled from contingency to cover those revisions. And that's all I have on the third quarter revisions. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Debbie. If I may, would you share with those listening and joining us this evening who has the authority to expend those dollars?
Do you mean the department, or are you talking about the approval of the revision?
The approval of the revisions.
When a revision is requested over 10,000, it is sent to the county administrator's office for approval. And then if the revision is over 50,000, it goes to the mayor's office for approval, as well as it may be required to be reviewed by the commission prior to approval.
Thank you, Debbie. I think it was important that the public understand that it's just these expenses just don't happen, and these dollars are reviewed by a number of individuals within the commission as well as staff and budget directors. So thank you for that. Okay, this was for information only. Any questions from the committee? I see no hands raised at this time. So as I stated, this was for information only. This was not an action item. If there's no questions, we'll move on to item number 7. And that's the third quarter budget to actuals. And I believe that I assume that it'll be Ms. Johnson again making the presentation.
Yes, it will.
Okay. Please.
I have another presentation for that. Let me bring that up. Having a little trouble with this one. Seems my screen's locked up a little bit. Just give me a second, if you would.
We're also dependent on technology.
The other two seem to work fine. Not sure what happened here. Let me just shut it down and reopen it. Okay, let's try this. Are you able to see that?
We have it.
Okay, so we'll start. This is the third quarter budget to actual financial performance. So we'll start with the consolidated general fund information, and this consists of the city general fund, county general fund, and the parks general fund. So we've got the revenues and expenditures here along with the net change. This is a comparison of fiscal year 2021 with fiscal year 20. So as you can see for revenues, currently we are at 83.4% of, we've received 83.4% of the budgeted amount. And on expenditures, we've received 68.6%. In the next couple slides, we'll go into the detail on what is under each of these categories.
Okay.
So we'll start with this. Oh, was there a question?
No, that's fine. Any questions? Let me look, Debbie. I'm sorry. Pull up my screen here. I see no hands raised.
Okay. We'll start with the city general fund revenues. This details out all the different revenues in the city general fund. As you can see, property tax, we've collected just slightly over 100% of budget. The property tax collections, there are 5 distributions each year, with the 2 main distributions being January and June. So typically by the second quarter, we have received about 90 to 95% of the property tax collections. I believe there is one small distribution that's done in the fourth quarter. So you might see just a slight change with the next quarter's reports. Sales tax is at 76.3%. Other taxes are at 73.7%. And I believe this is the other tax is where you will find the BPU revenues. Permits and licenses are at 80%. Intergovernmental revenues are at 81.2%. We'll just note in intergovernmental revenues, this does include some of the ARPA funds for the lost revenue replacement funds. There's 25 million in 2021. 15 of that is in the city general fund. 6 million is in the county, and then there's a little bit split out within all of the other funds. So that's what you're seeing here, is that lost revenue calculation. And then looks like most of the others are charges for service at 71.9%, fines and fees at 69.5%, and miscellaneous at 58.5%. So we're at a total of 78.7% for total revenues ending the third quarter. And then this next table just shows a comparison from the prior year. The blue is the prior period, and the red is the current period. And the dotted line would represent 75%, which would be 3/4 of the current year.
Okay, and Debbie, if I may, could we go back to that slide again one more time? The where is the one, the intergovernment revenues? Which item? It's kind of hard to see on my computer.
Right. It's right here. It's the 5th line down on the table on the left. The budget is 18.9 million, and the actuals are 15.3 million. Revenue collected 81.2%.
Okay, and how does that compare with 2020? That's what I was looking for here on this sheet, the third quarter of 2020 with your bar graph. Which one of those is it? Or is it-
It's intergovernmental. It's in the middle here.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, this is Kathleen Von Atchen. So the amount of intergovernmental revenues collected in 2020 was only around 5 million. So you can see a lot more.
Well, if I understood, and please help me if I'm not correct, the 15 of that is ARPA.
Yes,
And-
that's right.
Almost 15, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, almost 15 is ARPA, and for lost revenue. And I was trying to see how that lost revenue played into the bar graph here, where it showed, it looks like I'm trying to understand the bar graph. By the bar graph 2020 is
Yeah.
2020 the current year or former?
So the bar graph isn't showing the dollar amount. It's showing the percentage of budget that's been collected through that third quarter.
Okay, and that included last year additional federal funding, right?
No, the general fund did not. No, see, CARES Act dollars were reflected in a grant fund, not in the city general fund. The only CARES Act dollars received were actually reimbursement for public safety expenditures, which were recorded in an expense account.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. I was just trying to understand the bar graph. It has the largest growth of 2020. And when we talk about lost revenue, I think it's important that we understand where our potential for lost revenue stood. And I just wanted some clarification. I'll look into that deeper myself later. Thank you, Debbie. Please continue.
Sure. And I think this next table will maybe give you the information you might have been looking for. So this is a comparison with 2020 actuals. So you will see in the intergovernmental third quarter actuals, we had collected about 758,000. But as you could see on the bar graph, it showed we had collected 100% of budget by the third quarter. So within third quarter actuals for 2021, we're at 15.3 million.
Okay.
So this is just a comparison of each of these for through the third quarter of 2020 compared with the third quarter of 2021. Okay. And these would be actual collections.
Great, thank you. And that does raise more questions, but I will deal with that at a later time when we have discussions on budget. But I know this is just a comparison, so please continue.
Okay. The next slide, we're going to talk about the county general fund revenues. Same detail here. We've got, as you can see, property tax on the county side also is collected at 100.2%. I think the percentages are relatively similar to well, no, they're not. Sales taxes at 76.3%. Other taxes are 87.5%. And we have intergovernmental revenues here. As I said, about 6.1 million was the ARPA loss revenue that's been collected. And so intergovernmental revenues are at 99.6% of budget. Charges for service, 81.8, fines, 77.7, miscellaneous. So on the county side, we are at 93.4% of revenue collected. And part of that is probably because the majority of the revenue on the county general fund side comes from property tax revenues, which have been collected at 100% for the year. So then the graph on the right-hand side just shows the comparison of the percentage collected from third quarter 2020 to third quarter 2021.
Great, thank you. Questions, committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue on. Ms. Johnson.
Okay, and then just this is just the county general fund revenue with a comparison to 2020. These are the actuals collected through the third quarter. You can see that in third quarter 2020, we had collected about 58.5 million, and now we're at 70.2 million, which a portion of that is related to the ARPA revenues. With that, then I'll go into the expenditures. So we'll talk about the city general fund expenditures. We've got all the different categories here. Personnel is at 69.8%. Services are at 73.3%. I will just note that services on the city general fund side include both the trash contract as well as the ATA contract. Supplies are at 56.3%, and that would include some of the larger categories, might be fuel, natural gas, parts, expenses. Grants and claims, 55.9%. Miscellaneous and transfers out are only at 36.5%, and capital outlay is at 33.9%. So total city general fund expenditures, we spent about 68.6% of the total budget for the year. The graph on the right is a comparison of third quarter actuals for 2020 with third quarter actuals in 2021. In 2020, we had spent just a little over 100 million by the third quarter, and now we're at 109.1 million.
And Debbie, if I may, just for those looking, if I can go back to the prior slide, that 109, the 2021 total, that the personnel issue is does that reflect the increases as well as the additional employee expense for the health services that were provided for the community?
As far as the personnel, if there were any increases, if they were approved prior to the end of the third quarter, they would be included.
Okay.
If they were not approved till the fourth quarter, which would say October, then they would not be reflected here.
Okay, because what I see is an amended budget of 159,000, and we're looking down here at 100, and then the 109, 186 both line up. I'm trying to get to my point here in reference to the personnel. I do know that there were salary increases approved for staff, and there were bonuses paid due to ARPA because of the COVID. None of those are reflected in the personnel numbers.
I'm not sure if that may be something I might have to check on. I'm not sure if they're recorded, if they're shown here or in the grants. They may be shown in the grant fund.
Yeah, there aren't any ARPA bonuses being paid out of here.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. I just wanted to ensure that when we're looking at the numbers, because when we see a 59 million or 59,000 jump on the total, it raises questions as to why we would have 159,080 versus 100,808.
So so this is abbreviated. It's $159 million, and that's how much the budget was. What the second column is how much we've spent so far. Correct. So yeah,
and it's the same as what we spent, just a little more than what we spent last year, but we are budgeted for 159, and that. So I guess the question I would have is the fact that we budgeted for 100,808. Let me make sure I'm looking at this correctly. We're looking at 109 million already that has been spent.
Yeah.
So we have 50 million left in the last quarter. Is that what I'm to understand? For the last month?
That is correct. Yes. So there's basically 59 million left in the budget to spend this year. Yes. And we have been looking at that. Part of it, I believe, is because we budgeted, we anticipated that the fire union contract would be finalized. And so we set, we budgeted for that full effect, and that has not happened yet. So there are some expenditures that have not happened yet, and we're studying it very closely, but you're correct. We it looks like we're going to be underspending our budget this year by quite a bit.
Well, that's
Yes.
wonderful. In light of
Yes.
the fact that we're over 100% collected for our property tax tells me that our mill levies, in our initial discussion of the budget, there were a few of us that talked about mill reductions, and it's quite clear in this budget presentation that we met that goal early on, and that we are ahead of ourselves in that and under what we've spent in expenses. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
So thank you for that. Please continue.
Okay, I'll go on to the county general fund expenditures. The table over on the left hand side shows the 2021 amended budget with third quarter year-to-date actuals. So as you can see, budget was 72.4 million, and year-to-date for the third quarter is 49.8 million. So we have spent 68.8% of budget. And I'll just point out, it's personnel on the county side, we're at 73.1%. And on services, we are at 65.6%. I will note that on the services, this does include the inmate medical contract, as well as the prisoner housing contracts. So those are included in that total.
Great.
And then the table on the right shows a comparison of year-to-date actuals collected for third quarter 2020 with third quarter 2021. So in 2020, we had collected 48.6 million. I mean, we had spent 48.6 million as of the end of the third quarter. And for 2021, we're at 49.8 million. So we are slightly above the third quarter 2020 totals.
But the third quarter was at only 68.8%, which it should have been, if numbers matched up, it would have been 75% of the budget. Or 75, it should have been 75%. Thank you.
So the next two slides show the revenues and expenditures for all of the other funds. This first table shows the tax levy funds. The revenues are in blue here, and the expenditures are in orange. So we've already covered the city and county general funds. As you can see, a lot of the property, since the property tax revenues have almost been collected at 100%, you can see most of these funds are well above the 75% of budget. Total tax levy funds are at 84.8% collected. And on the expenditure side, I'll just note on the city bond and interest and the county bond and interest, both of those are, we've got 97% for the city and 93.7% for the county. And that is due to the fact that all of the principal and interest, almost all of the principal and interest payments on our debt are usually made by the third quarter. I think we've got a couple of smaller debt payments that occur in the fourth quarter, but the majority of them have occurred in the third quarter. So on the expense side, we're at 72.2% for the tax levy funds. And then this next one shows all of the other funds. So we've got the revenues in blue here and the expenditures in orange. I'll just maybe make note of a couple of funds. The special asset fund, as you can see, it only has 9.5%. There are some fourth quarter entries that are made. So there's nothing reflected here, but we will probably see that with the fourth quarter report. Treasury Technology Fund is only showing 32.8%, but I do know that they have some expenses coming in the fourth quarter related to some new equipment, some security equipment, things like that are coming. So while it's not reflected here, that should go up in the fourth quarter.
Debbie, if I may.
So that shows all the other funds. Sure.
I do have a question. I'm looking at the sewer fund, and I see that the amended budget is a 77.1% on the sewer system, I guess I should say. And then if we go back over and look at 2021, it is at 64. So we are ahead of we're just a little ahead of ourselves in the amended.
No, on this table, actually, the three columns in the middle here that are highlighted in blue, these are the revenues. And the three columns on the right-hand side are the expenses. So for the sewer system, we've collected in revenue 77% of the budget. And then on the expense side, we've spent 64.4% of the budget. So this one's a little bit different presentation. This is revenues and expenditures for each of the different funds.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. I'm trying to read through this as you make your presentation, and I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Sure.
Committee, any questions before we move on? I see no hand.
That's the end of my present. I was gonna say that's the end of my presentation. So yeah, if there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any committee, any questions, any comments? My only comment is it looks like our numbers are looking well for this year under the most challenging of times. So I appreciate the presentation. It's nice to see that the property taxes are at little over 100%. So we have the revenue in reference to sales tax. And I must have missed that when I was looking at sales tax, consumption taxes, but we can look at that later on when we have full discussion, Ms. Johnson. So
we were at about 76% for sales tax on both the city and the county.
Great. So and I believe if those were presented last year, I know the year before they were a little conservative and we beat those, and I believe those numbers were bumped up a little bit for this year. And it sounds like we're pretty close with that.
Right.
So
we're tracking pretty close to budget right now.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Committee, it's good news. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this was for information only. There is no action required. I want to thank staff for joining us this evening. I believe that's the last issue we have before us on the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee. At this time, we will adjourn, and I will then turn the opportunity over to Mr. McKiernan, Commissioner McKiernan, to lead us in the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. So, Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Burroughs. Appreciate the opportunity to start our Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. Before I do call this committee meeting to order, however, I do want to remind everyone that due to COVID-19, some committee members, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, as well as some who are on site at City Hall. All participants who are joining by phone or by computer should mute their devices when they are not speaking so that we can avoid background noise and distraction. During the meeting, we ask that everyone please announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so that the public who is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, in-person public comment has been suspended unless otherwise required by law. Now, the public is allowed to participate by Zoom. They're also allowed to submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be added to the record of the meeting. And we do have the lobby of City Hall, the public library, a public lobby also available for public comment. With all of that said, we'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. To the best of my knowledge, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, there were no revisions to the original agenda once it was posted.
Correct.
And we do not have any minutes to consider from previous meetings, so that will move us straight into the committee agenda. We have our first, I'm sorry, yes, please.
Do a roll call first?
Why, that would be wonderful. I'm ready to get started. Could you please?
Roll call. Walters?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Townsend?
Here.
Burroughs?
Here.
McKiernan?
Here in body, evidently not in mind. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 1 tonight. Item number 1 is an ordinance that would amend our landmarks ordinance. And we have a request from staff not only to consider and approve moving this ordinance forward, but also that we fast track it to the commission meeting of December 2nd. For this presentation, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Gunnar Hand, who is our Director of Planning and Urban Design.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. The agenda, the item in front of you today is a revision to the historic districts ordinance in the Unified Government Code. This is essentially our historic preservation code. I think we sent you a draft of that code for your review ahead of this meeting. I can answer any questions after my brief presentation and comments. There are a couple of pretty significant changes to this ordinance. Namely, we reduced the environs buffer, that is the area outside of a historic landmark and a historic district that we do administrative reviews on, in addition to those historic districts and historic landmarks, from 500 to 200 feet. We also expand the notification requirements, essentially applying the same notifications we do for all of our other entitlements, like master plan amendments, change of zones, special use permits, things of that nature. We extend those notification requirements to all certificates of appropriateness. Those are the entitlements given to historic districts and historic landmarks and projects within them. So essentially moving forward, if approved, we would do a 200-foot notice of all properties. We would send it out to our lists. We would publish it in the newspaper and so on and so forth. And then I think the third sort of primary thing that happened was a general overhaul of the entire ordinance. About 10 plus years ago, the environs section was added to the original ordinance. It's sort of tacked on at the back end of it. So there were 2 places for definitions. There were 2 places for procedures. There were 2 places for what is or is not an environs. And so we sort of, we brought it all together and made it a little clearer as a read. We also believe that we added some additional clarity and transparency to the code, further defining what is or is not a certificate of appropriateness, what is or is not an environs review, as well as some of the procedures and processes. So with that, again, we're asking for a fast track to the December 2nd Board of Commissioners hearing. We do have a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission for this ordinance, and I'm happy to take any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Mr. Hand. I'll ask the committee if there are any comments or questions regarding this proposed ordinance. Or I guess I should say ordinance revision. I don't see any hands raised among the panelists. Oh, now I do. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Good evening, Mr. Hand. Out of an abundance of caution, if there are questions, let's say this moves out of committee and is fast tracked to the December 2nd, if someone in the public or even us had questions that came between now and then, would this be a situation where we'd have to set aside or there would be discussion? No, it's probably like the other issue that came up in the preceding meeting. This would go on the agenda for commissioners. What is that? Help me, Commissioner McKiernan.
Commissioner, if I could, I do believe that since this is being fast-tracked, it would go into the section of our Thursday agenda that is called Standing Committee Agenda, where we would actually bring this item forward at that time, allow for discussion, and then have a vote.
Okay, thank you. You answered my question then. And I think Deputy Clerk was about to chime in as well. So thank you both. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Yes, and this is Carol Gotzel, Deputy UT Clerk. My question is for Gunnar. Gunnar, is this ordinance the same ordinance that's placed on Thursday's non-consent planning agenda?
Yep, same thing.
Same thing. Okay, so that, Commissioner, that's where it will be placed. It's on the planning and zoning non-consent agenda for this Thursday's meeting.
Okay, so that would allow for a discussion or questions if there were any then. Thank you.
Correct. There will be a public hearing. And I would just, sorry, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. I would also just note that if you have any questions between now and then, let us know. We'd be happy if there are any changes to go back to the Planning Commission and back through this committee. We're in no necessary rush. I think the preface of this was the Landmarks Commission had asked us to pull their recommended changes, which were the environs buffer was their primary change. We added the others after our staff review, but they asked us to pull that out of the overall zoning code update so that we had a most up-to-date ordinance as we moved forward with the project to hopefully develop a historic district in downtown KCK. So that was, we're sort of tracking them right now. But again, I guess I would say globally, the zoning code is a living document. We're happy to make changes and continue to rehash these things as necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Hand. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk if we had any public comments submitted regarding this particular item.
No public comments were received.
Thank you. I don't see any hands raised among the attendees for making additional comments. Committee, this is an action item. The floor is open for a motion.
Commissioner Burroughs, at-large District 2, move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Walters, second.
Thank you very much. There's been a motion and a second to approve and forward fast track to the December 2 meeting. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Hand. Thank you, committee. That takes us to item number 2, which are land bank option applications. I'm going to recognize Mr. Judd Knapp here in just a second, who will present the applications to us. Committee, unless there are objections, I would ask that we take this as we have done in the past, where under item 2A, we consider numbers 1 through 7 each individually, because the specifics of each application vary so much from one to another that it is sometimes hard to aggregate them. And unfortunately, that will call for a number of votes, but we can consider each specific project individually. Mr. Knapp, if you would please begin the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is Judd Knapp, the Land Bank Manager. So tonight, I'm presenting 8 single-family homes, 1 commercial, and 1 property transfer. And I'd like you to note these 3 properties up here in the Quindaro town site. I had a request to make a map, and we will review all the different areas of the Quindaro town site. All right, so the first one is at 3306 North 33rd Street. It's for a single-family home. The zoning is R1, so it does meet the zoning for this project. It is 1 acre. There is no sewer in this area. So since it is 1 acre, it is eligible for a septic tank. The applicant currently lives in Los Angeles, but is planning to build their retirement home and move back here. The staff comments was it is outside of any historical environs. Here is the Northeast Area Master Plan, and it is in the single family district, so that meets the requirements for the Northeast Area Master Plan. Here is the map of the Quindaro town site. There's a lot on this map, so this map's in 2 parts. The first one is Western University Memorandum of Understanding. The second one is Quindaro Town Site Archaeological District. And we have a land bank hold area. This one pretty much matches what the Northeast Area Master Plans, the historic and institutional boundary here. Then we have the historic landmarks, historic districts, land bank lots, other land, and then the land bank application. So you see that this first application is here. It is 630 feet away from this line here. The second map, we add the historic environs in it. These are 500-foot environs, although you just heard that they might be changing to 200 feet. So the project that we're voting on first here is definitely outside of all historic environs. Commissioner, that would conclude my presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. So for item A1, does the committee have any comments or questions for Mr. Knapp or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burroughs at large. Move for
Sir.
approval.
Townsend, District 1, second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve this item as submitted. I would ask Carol if there have been any comments submitted regarding this item.
No comments from the public were received.
Thank you. I do not see any hands raised among the attendees. There is a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burroughs,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Knapp. That'll bring us to A2, please.
All right, so A2 is at 2725 Sewell Avenue. It's for a single family home. The zoning is R1, so it does meet, the project does meet zoning. A little bit of backstory on this one. In the 1930s, the property was owned by the applicant's grandparents. The grandfather was actually a professor of agriculture at Western University. The applicant also went to Vernon Elementary School. The desire is to contribute an element of natural but orderly beautification to the community by restoring grandfather's garden and create a formal rose garden. The materials for this project will be low maintenance gardening. If approved, the hope is that they'll become a positive element and source of pride for the community, honoring our past through example. The staff comments on this one is that they're not recommending approval because of the proximity to the Quindaro town site. Staff is recommending extending the hold area to include this property. If this property was approved, the project would require an environment review and historic district review. In the Northeast Area Master Plan, it is in the lower medium density residential. So this would match the master plan. And to our map here, the star is where we where this property is. It is actually in the historic district. This is not in the environment of the historic district. It is the historic district, but it is in the environment of the historic landmark of the Vernon Elementary School. Here you can kind of see the environment of the elementary school. Let's see. That, Commissioner, concludes this item.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Does any member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp on item A2? Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. I'd like to applaud the applicant for wanting to beautify the area. It's really interesting history that's been presented. I am concerned, though, because it is so close to the designated landmark that Mr. Knapp showed, and it's in the purple area for those of you who may not, to help you get another fix on it. If you're at all familiar with where the John Brown statue is, it's literally around the corner from that. So it's highly likely that this Quindaro town site, the gray area or the area that's bordered by the yellow outline here, this application lies so close to that, it is highly conceivable that when the group that will meet to talk about what should be in that yellow outlined area, that improvements, including the area where this application lies, would be considered. So for that reason, I would not be in favor of this one going forward, at least not until this area and the Western University MOU group has met and really talked to the community and others for improvements, what the improvements would be for that area. I just don't think it benefits that project at this point to accept projects like we have here that are so close to these environs. And we have denied applicants before for the same reason, even though they were a little bit further away. This seems to be right in the path. So for that reason, I would not be in favor of it at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does any other member of the committee have a comment or question for Mr. Knapp? I do not see any. Carol, have we received any communication regarding this application?
No public comments were received.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the attendees list who'd like to make public comment on this application?
I see no hands raised.
Thank you so much. This item is available for motion if the committee so chooses. I hear no motion. I'll just ask one more time just to make sure this item is available for motion if the committee so chooses. There is not a motion, so this item does not move forward, is not approved. It fails for lack of a motion. That takes us to item A3. Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Commissioner. So this is for a single family home built on 3 lots at 3429, 3427, and 3425 North 31st Street. The applicant actually currently owns 3428 North 31st Street across the street. This project does match the zoning, and the frontage for all 3 of those properties is 200 feet. A little backstory again, Ms. Justice's family owned this land in this neighborhood, and the location is essential because it represents her family's history. Ms. Justice cannot trace her family's geographic history further back than this property. Ms. Justice has shown her commitment to the neighborhood by purchasing another lot and by entering into a lease lot agreement for 12 lots with the land bank, including these 3, and spending time and money to remove a substantial amount of debris on the lot. The staff comments on this one is not recommending approval due to the proximity to the Quindaro town site. This location will also have sewer connection issues, and accessing the property due to the road being closed. They would have to rebuild the road or buy the properties closer to Sloan Avenue to get access to the property. I did get a Google image of 31st and Sloan. This is the south of the requested parcels. In the Northeast Area Master Plan, it is lower medium density, so a single family home would match the master plan. Here's this map again that shows it. It is in historical environs. If this one did change to 200 feet environs, these properties are 190 feet from the historic district. So, Commissioner, that would complete my presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Does any member of the committee have comment or question on item A3? Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Again, we have a similar situation where you have an application for lots in the historic environment and very close to the Western University MOU. One of the things that I am curious about, I don't know if there is, if the applicant is available to answer the question. You said, Mr. Knapp, that the applicant owns a home adjacent to or right across the street from the lots for which the application is being considered tonight, correct?
Commissioner, the applicant owns a lot, not a house.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that took care of the question was going to be the follow-up. Does the applicant live there? So that took care of that question. You also mentioned something about the applicant leasing some property. And where is that? Is that shown here at all?
It is not, but it's basically 12 lots, and it was all of these land bank lots here, all of these land bank lots, and these land bank lots back here. It totaled up to 12 lots in total. They started their lease. I mean, their lease just expired like yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Their 2-year lease expired yesterday.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, because of the close environs of this application to the MOU area, I am inclined not to support this application. I would, however, ask for the time to talk to this applicant unless she is available to inquire more about, you know, her intention. One thing, we have a lot of vacant land in District 1, so her goal for building may be achieved elsewhere. And I do appreciate that she may want to be near where family once owned property. But again, I think we need to keep options open for property that is so close to this MOU area until more definite decisions are made. We shouldn't, I think, cut ourselves off with what could be in that area by making these option agreements available right now. And not right now, but at some time in the near future, I think this needs to be addressed by the group so that people are not frustrated with applications that, you know, we would have to turn down because it's so close. I think we need to give some direction to you and to the public about what is to be developed or what could be developed in that area. And I think we stifle possibilities if we let these lands go right now. So what I would like to see, if it's at all possible, is to just have this delayed 1 month and come back. I would like to talk to the applicant, but this is really close to the environment. So that would be my motion, just to delay this for 1 month to give me an opportunity to speak more to the applicant if she's not available tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. To the best of my knowledge, the applicant is not available tonight, but I do have a hand up from someone in the attendees list who I believe may be counsel representing the applicant. And so it looks like Ms. Cancel has been given permission to talk and is unmuted. So Ms. Cancel, if you are here representing Ms. Justice and can answer any of Commissioner Townsend's questions, I would welcome that at this time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is Mary Ann Cancel, and I am representing Mrs. Justice in this matter. She is very dedicated to this project. She wants to build a single family residence on these 3 lots. She has been speaking with neighbors, adjoining lots, etc. And if she can get the land bank lots, it is possible that she will be able to obtain lots further to the south. It's kind of a chicken and the eggs until she gets land bank lots. She doesn't know with certainty if that will be an option for her. But this is Mr. Knapp very put it very well. Her grandmother owned land very near here, and she is so dedicated to this area. And I do not know that this is an application that is easily transferable to another location. And it is frustrating for applicants to, I mean, Mrs. Justice has the 12 lots under the lease lot agreement. The lease on some of the lots expired yesterday, but a few of them are still, they were not all entered in. It's not all under the same lease. So several of them, the lease does not expire until sometime in 2022, but she has expended funds to clean up debris. She hasn't cleared the lots, but she's removed a lot of trash. And she's very familiar with the area, and she's familiar with the road. And that is not dampening her spirit for building a home and living there. And that these lots are available on the land bank map to a resident who wishes to move forward with plans. We did look at the master plan, looked at possible projects that are in the idea stage, and the only thing that we saw that was nearby was the walking trail, which is to the north, begins to the north and to the east of this property, and the walking trail proceeds east. So this is not would not in any way, shape, or form interfere with that project. And there seem to be many areas in the community where lots are presented on the land bank map, but they aren't, if they aren't really available, I guess my question is, why are they on the land bank map? And we have somebody here who wants to build a house in good faith, put this property back on the tax rolls. It could be 5 years, it could be 25 years before anything happens in this area. And there is the right of eminent domain, and it has been used for other projects of historical significance. You know, if Mrs. Justice gets to build her house and live on this property for 30 years, what a wonderful win-win for everybody. Because there isn't anything in the works right now. And her plan is not detrimental to the neighborhood or to the community. It's within the zoning. She does have to work out the sewer issues. Probably the 3 lots together are a little bit under an acre. But like I said, she is really committed to this area right here, as those lease lot agreements show. And she could not be in attendance tonight. She teaches a class that she had to attend, and I think that broke her heart a little bit not to be able to speak for herself on this. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you for listening. This is just, she's so committed to this project. I am just honored to represent her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cancel. definitely appreciate that perspective on the application. I would ask Commissioner Townsend, well, I'm sorry, I would ask Commissioner Townsend, before I get to Commissioner Walters, I'll just circle back to Commissioner Townsend and see if she has any follow-up based on that input from council.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Cancel, for being here tonight to represent Ms. Justice. I do have some questions about whether or not, or what's going on with the lot she has under lease. What was the purpose or the end goal of putting those properties under lease? And is this something that she intends to be a resident of? And to your comment about these properties being on the land bank listing, that is true. But as I'd said before, with this project, which the community is very anxious to see get started, discussions about with the MOU area, the issue is not to stifle what that area could be by awarding properties out of the land bank in those environments right now. That is the issue. So if you could fill us in with what's been going on with these properties under the leases that Ms. Justice has had. And I understand her attachment to the area from family members, the Justice family in that area. But we do want to be fair to everyone who may have interest in that area and not stifle this project to come. So any more insight you could give would be appreciated.
Ms. Cancel, if you want to go ahead and respond to Commissioner Townsend, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the questions. She does have a bigger plan for the area. None of it is a commercial or retail use. She wants to build a greenhouse and to have green space eventually. But she is very wise to proceed incrementally and not bite off more than she can chew in the time that is allowed for getting started and for completing a project. I guess this is a bird in the hand, and it's she has every intention of doing a nice residence with an outdoor area and landscaping. And she has been working with contractors. And I know you had another part to your question, and I am so sorry. I didn't write it down before I responded. She purchased the property at 3428 in the hope that she would be able to talk with other property owners in the area and just put a piece together that would work. And I also think that that is part of the reason why she has the other lots under lease a lot agreement, is trying to figure out what will work. And I think she spent, well, I know she spent funds. I think it's in the area of, this is a broad range of $2,000 to $5,000 to remove the debris. As I said, she hasn't cleared trees or brush or anything like that on the lots, but there was, I guess, a lot of dumping that had occurred. And as far as I know, unless people have been out there and dumping recently, the lots are cleaned up in that regard. She, like, as I said earlier, she's been speaking with contractors. She has her financing in place, and she did her due diligence looking for possible plans that other organizations, neighborhood groups might have for this area, and could find nothing other than the walking trail, which is a wonderful project, but it doesn't affect this street. We've had some conversations with Mr. Knapp. He's been very helpful. And I don't know if I addressed all of your questions or not, Commissioner Townsend. I apologize if I didn't.
No, I think you did for the time being. I still am. I think that the best, to be fair, is, as I said, I think I've asked for this to be held over for further conversation and explanation. But this is so close to the environment area, to the MOU area. And I think it behooves the city not to stifle itself for what that could be right now. So that would be, my comment on it right now. This is not her primary residence, correct? Well, you said there's no development there, correct, at 3428?
It is not her primary residence. If she were to switch her plans to the Lisa lots that are on North 30th, that are a little bit further south, I think Mr. Knapp said that I was looking the lots to the east. Those. That would move her away from the environs a little bit. He said the 3 lots she was looking at would be 192 feet. And if the landmark ordinance changes are made, there would be 8 feet. But those lots are a little bit further south. They may possibly be a little bit closer to the street, to an existing street, I guess I should say. Further south, there's a little bit of a street closer to Sloan. And that could be something that she may be amenable to, and we could discuss.
Thank you, Ms. Cancel. I appreciate that additional information. Commissioner Townsend has made a motion for the committee that this item be continued or held over until our next meeting, to give you and Commissioner Townsend and the applicant a time to communicate about that. At this point, I'll recognize Commissioner Walters.
Yes, thank you. I was raising my hand to second the motion. Specifically, the questions I would suggest be pursued are, why are we selling 3 lots to build 1 house? That's often a question we ask when people want multiple lots that could support more than 1 residence. I also suggest that we, as Commissioner Townsend suggested, that we try to get a handle on what the overall master plan for this area is in the eyes of the applicant. We have struggled when applicants want 5 or 6 or 10 properties, and we don't have any idea really what they plan to do with those. We approve, obviously, single lots and sometimes more than single lots, but we have talked in the past when people are asking for more than 5 lots, that we get a presentation of what their ultimate goal is. So I think that would be another thing that we might be able to get a little bit of a grip on if we delayed this for 30 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. There is a motion and a second to hold this item over for until our next meeting, to allow additional conversation to occur. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? I'll ask the clerk if we got any other correspondence regarding this application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands from the attendees. And so we'll ask for a roll call on holding over for 1 meeting.
Okay, roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. That takes us to item A4. Mr. Knapp.
Commissioner. So the next one is for a single family home at 2606 South 8th Street. The zoning is R1 and the project does meet zoning. The applicant looks to build a live-work scenario where they could do leather making, jewelry making, artists, including painting and pottery and etc. There could be an opportunity for light woodworking and light metalworking, but certainly not any kind of production scale. So the staff comments were, in the current R1 zoning, the applicant can make art for a hobby, but when these products are sold, a business license and possibly a special use permit would be required. And that special use permit also requires a public meeting through planning. The lot also has a creek running through the lot, and the lot measures 65 feet from the creek to the road, and with the required 25-foot setback. And since it's a corner lot, the home can face either South 8th Street or Seminary Street. Both of these would give enough room to build this home. The picture provided looks kind of tall. The max height allowed in R1 is 35 feet measured from the ground. The property is also in a flood. It's not in a floodplain. It's in a special hazard. It's a special flood hazard zone on the northwest corner. In conclusion, the lot is buildable, so they can build their project here. And that would conclude my presentation on this item, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. If you would go ahead and go back to the dot maps, the aerial map of this, the map. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So basically, the staff advisory committee, while recognizing that there are challenges to building on this lot, does approve the would approve the recommendation for this application. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. Does any member of the committee have comments or questions for Mr. Knapp on this application? And I will say to the committee that I do notice the applicant is with us online. And so if there are any questions for the applicant, he is available. Seeing no comments or questions, is there a motion from the committee?
Commissioner Burroughs, move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Walters, second.
Thank you very much. I'll ask the clerk if we received any communication regarding this particular application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wild, I do thank you for being present with us tonight. It does not appear that the committee has any questions for you. And so I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you, committee. Mr. Wild, your application is approved as submitted. You can follow up with Mr. Knapp at a later time to take the next step. That takes us to item A5. Mr. Knapp.
So this is for a single family home at 1600 South 86th Street. It is zoned R1 and the project does meet zoning. It is 1.5 acres and there is no sewer in the area, but since the lot is big enough, it can support a septic system. The applicant is basically looking to build a home closer so they could live closer to their brother. So staff and the Land Bank Advisory Board both recommend the project. This item, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Any comments or questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I'm trying to get my hand up. Commissioner Burroughs at large.
Yes, sir.
Judd, is this a I don't want to call it a prefab or custom built home. Is this a metal building? Is this the design that is being proposed?
Yes, Commissioner, and I did have the same picture when we reviewed with planning and building inspection, and they didn't have any comments about the steel building.
So is this on a slab?
I would have to get back with you on that one.
Thank you, Jed.
And Commissioner, unlike the previous applicant, I do not see this applicant among our attendees list, so it doesn't look like we can get any further clarification on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I'm all about infill housing and opportunities for people to move into our community and celebrate the diversity that we have in our community. I'm just curious if we have a set standard on what we accept as home design versus a modular or a prefabbed home on a slab, because we do have opportunities in the inner city where we have in the past have our city lots that may be challenged due to the fact how we raised those properties in the past versus a greenfield versus a brownfield building. And that's what I'm looking at here. When I first saw this building, it almost looked like a recreational facility versus a home. And that's why I raised the questions I did.
Commissioner, I completely appreciate your questions about the pictures that are presented to us in these presentations. And I have commented myself that sometimes they look like they were just taken from a gallery of potential homes as opposed to being an accurate representation of what will be built on that site. Mr. Knapp, I would assume that this dwelling would have to pass all approvals both before, during, and after construction in order for it to be inhabited. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
So Commissioner Burroughs, with the applicant not being here, well, certainly we have three possible options with this, but one of them would be to hold over as we did the previous two applications ago so that we can get more information for you from the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. I just wanted to ensure that the quality of housing that we put into our community that generates additional as a catalyst for investment within our community, that they are the type of homes and type of residences that many in our community may find attractive. And I'm not by any means trying to diminish the drawing that is presented here this evening, but it does raise some questions as to what we identify as housing in our community. And I don't know what our minimum standard is for square foot on the single level on a slab versus a basement. So you have me at a distinct disadvantage. I might suggest, Mr. Chairman, the fact that the individual is not joining us this evening, we hold this one over for 30 days.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will consider that a motion to hold over for 30 days for the purpose of further discussion.
Walters, second.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second to hold this over so that we can get some additional information from the applicant. I'd ask the clerk if there was any correspondence received regarding this application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you very much. I'll recognize Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification, and it goes back to the other item we held over. I know we will not have a meeting in December, so this will be for the next meeting, whenever that is, but there won't be a meeting in December, correct?
That is correct, and I thank you for clarifying that. This is effectively our December meeting tonight. And so as I look forward, I do believe that our next meeting will be on Monday, January the 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
So the next meeting of this committee will be in January, not in December. With that, there is a motion and a second to hold over until the next meeting. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Burroughs.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you very much. That takes us to item A6, I'm sorry, Mr. Knapp.
This is for construction of a single-family home at 8545 Candace Avenue. The zoning is agricultural, and that does meet the, that does match the project. It is 2.94 acres. This is big enough for a septic system. The sewer runs on the other side of the creek. I did talk to Public Works, and they said they can run sewer lines over a creek, but there's some special things they have to do to it. I do have to note this there was a structure in the 70s built in this corner up here on the northeast corner. This road it looks a little weird because this where 86th Street used to go. I mean, this road didn't exist before. So staff and the Land Bank Advisory Board both recommend the project. That concludes my item, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Does any member of the committee have comments or questions? And I will note that the applicant is present with us online tonight. So if any member of the committee has questions for the applicant, she is available.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burroughs, I would move for approval.
Commissioner Townsend, District 1, second.
Thank you so much. There is a motion and a second to approve as submitted. I'll just have to ask the clerk if we got any correspondence regarding this application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you very much. With a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burroughs,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That application is approved. Ms. Vega, your item is approved, and you can follow up with Mr. Knapp at a later time to take the next step in your process. Thank you so much for your application. That takes us to item A7. Mr. Knapp.
Yes, this item was from earlier this month and was held over for to get some more information from the applicant. So this item is building two single-family homes at 2712 Garfield Avenue and 1876 North 28th Street. Both homes do meet the zoning. 27, let me go back. 2712 Garfield Avenue will be used as the applicant's primary residence. 1876 North 28th Street will be used as the applicant's large family when they visit. There's no plans to sell or rent these homes. Staff and Land Bank Advisory Board both recommend the project. From the Northeast Area Master Plan, it is in the single family zone, so that meets. And Commissioner, that concludes my presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. I'll recognize Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I have had a chance to meet or talk to Dr. Barbara Woods, who will be the owner of both of these properties. I am satisfied with her intent. She has indicated she does have large family. These will be multi-story homes that she is planning on building. She has engaged with a contractor that thinks he can get them done for a moderate price that I think would not be an albatross to the neighborhoods themselves. And so with that, I would move for approval of this item.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Commissioner Townsend, District 1, second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions from the committee regarding this application? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if we've received any correspondence regarding this application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you. And the only two attendees that we have left are not associated with this application. So a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burroughs,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you so much. That is the last item in our A group. And now we have item 2B. Mr. Knapp.
This is for a food truck plaza at 816 North 9th Street. It is zoned C0, and this would require a zoning change to C1. So the zoning change and a master plan amendment would both require a public meeting. The staff advisory is not recommending they would have to rezone it to C1, and this would cause master plan change. And the downtown shareholders do not support this location. Another note from staff is that under the current rules for food trucks, they could park just about anywhere. There are some exceptions, like in front of a brick and mortar restaurant or in residential areas, they have to be invited in by the property owner. That concludes my presentation on this one, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Any comments or questions from the committee on this particular application? I don't see any. I will just share that I am not in favor of this application. I don't think it's the highest and best use for this very prominent location, given the fact that food trucks are not necessarily constrained to a location that they own and park on. I don't know that it's necessary for the applicant to have this lot paved for the purpose of parking the truck on it. Any other comments or questions from the committee? With that, I would ask if there is a motion for this particular application. I do not hear a motion, but just to make sure, I'll ask if there is a motion for this particular application. There is no motion from the committee. This item does not move forward, fails for lack of a motion. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Knapp. And that takes us to our second to the last item, which is item number 3, a land bank property transfer. Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Commissioner. So they're requesting 2641R North 22nd Street. They currently own 2641 North 22nd Street. So this property is directly behind the one that they own. The property is landlocked, so that would make it unbuildable. So that concludes my presentation on this one, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. I'd ask the committee if there are any comments or questions regarding this application, and I will point out that the applicant is with us tonight online. So if you need any additional information or have questions, the applicant is available. I'll recognize Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is one of those issues that brought up the question that I had in our earlier review in reference to additional building on landlocked lots that are owned by the resident to build what I would consider like a mother-in-law's quarters, an additional building behind the residence to allow us to have additional properties that provide residence for extended family and or I don't want to call it rental because I don't want to start down that road. But when a person owns a piece of property that's landlocked and it's an extensive piece of property, I was just curious if we had an opportunity for staff to maybe review and look at my concerns and questions in reference to an additional livable building behind a residence.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the question on that and the clarification. And I would actually ask if the clerk can grant Mr. Simmons the ability to talk to us. And Mr. Simmons, if you could just address Commissioner Burroughs' question and give us some background on your application for this property transfer. I do believe you are unmuted. So good evening, Mr. Simmons.
Good evening. How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Exactly what was the question?
Well, Commissioner Burroughs wanted to know if there would be an opportunity to build any additional dwelling or maybe a detached, I'm not going to actually speak for Commissioner Burroughs, but looking at the larger question of when we have a long and deep parcel like this, if it's possible to get an additional structure rather than just have it being a yard extension, for lack of a better term. So what is your, let's go this way. What's your intent with this property when you acquire it?
My plan was to first cut down the trees that I won't be able to use, pull up roots and stumps, and get the soil tested for a possible garden in the future. But in the meantime, to get grass and a privacy fence up, and just really just start a garden and maybe a few fruit trees.
Thank you so much, Mr. Simmons. I do appreciate that. I would note that on the map here, it does appear that the 3 parcels to the south that do have houses that face 22nd Street have yards that do extend all the way back to that right-of-way. And so it doesn't look like your use would be out of line with what currently exists on this particular block. Although Commissioner Burroughs' question of additional construction is still a very valid question across the board on these properties. Do any members of the committee have any other comments or questions? And I do see Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, you really just brought up the point that I was going to bring up, in that these lots extend, they're deep lots, and they appear that there is a precedence for that along 22nd Street, that these lots would be deeper lots that would just be extensions of the primary residence. I don't have a problem. I mean, you're right, Judd, it is landlocked. But if this is just a yard extension, and he wants to clean that property up and maintain that property, I have no qualms at all with him having that property to do just that. So with that, I would move for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you. And it's not that I'm opposed to the approval at all. I'm bringing this forward because we do have a lot of lots. And when we look at this particular parcels, we do see long lots, as Commissioner Johnson expressed. But we also know that we have a senior population in our community, and the extended family is critically important to many of us. And if there's an opportunity for additional construction on these long lots, that was just a point of consideration. I'm not requesting that they do that. It's not that I'm opposed to the development. I think this is a question that we should be asking in reference to landlocked properties that may be large enough to house more than one residential unit.
I very much appreciate your point, Commissioner, and I would suggest that I could ask Mr. Gunnar Hand, our Director of Urban Planning, to come to this committee at a future meeting and educate us all as to our current regulations within the unified government for these accessory dwellings or additional construction, if you think that would be for the benefit of the committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do. In light of the rezoning that we're going through right now, I think it would be important for us to at least give consideration to that. We do have some landlocked properties throughout our entire community, but the prudent thing to do would to at least research what we can do moving forward into large amounts of property, not only for yard extensions and or gardens, but those applicants that may want to come forward and build a second residence behind their main residence.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will invite Mr. Hand to a future meeting and ask him to give us all more information on the current zoning regulations and any changes that might be currently considered. Commissioner Walters?
Second.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's a motion and a second to approve this property transfer as submitted. Any other comments or questions from the committee? I'll ask the clerk if we received any correspondence regarding this application.
No public comments were received.
Thank you so much. And since the applicant is the only attendee online with us, I'll ask for a roll call on the motion.
Roll call. Walters.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Burroughs,
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Simmons, your application has been approved as submitted. You can follow up with Mr. Knapp at a later time, and he will tell you what the next steps are in your process. And for the committee, I will reach out to Gunnar Hand, our Director of Urban Planning, and ask him to visit with us at a future meeting regarding the broad topic of accessory dwelling units that might be constructed on a long lot like this. I'll ask the clerk about public agenda item number 1. For the committee, we had been asked by a Ms. Colleen Roberts to have an opportunity to come before the committee and present public input regarding a potential new development and an update to the Piper Master Plan. I do not see Ms. Roberts online with us tonight, and so I'll ask the clerk, are you aware or have you been in communication with her?
The only communication we've had is via email. So an email was sent to Ms. Roberts on November 18th, advising her she was allowed to speak this evening, and she was advised how to participate via Zoom, phone, or the lobby of this building.
Thank you for that. At this time, let's follow up and do this. Let's communicate with her again. And in light of the fact that who knows what the circumstances are, but in light of the fact that she was not able to appear before us tonight, offer her the opportunity to come to our meeting of January 3rd for the purpose of presenting public comment.
Okay, we will certainly do that.
Commissioner Walters.
Yes, thank you. It looks like we're kind of coming close to the end of our meeting, and before we adjourned, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say that this is my last meeting of this committee, and really appreciate all the staff work that goes into committee meetings like this. I really think that the work of the commissioners at these committee meetings is as important or maybe more important than our work at the commission meetings themselves. I also want to appreciate my fellow commissioners. I appreciated getting to know you and working with you on this committee. I really do think the next few years in Wyandotte County are going to be very good. And a lot of opportunities are going to be there. And I just wish everybody the best of luck. So thank you.
Commissioner, thank you very much. And we certainly are indebted to you for all of the time and energy and effort and insight that you've given us on applications before this committee, all of our committees over the years. I will recognize Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Townsend, District 1. Commissioner Walters beat me to the punch. So class act that he is, I wanted to make sure that I said my thank yous for the opportunity to work with him over these last 8 years on these 2 committees. And you've heard how beneficial his insight has been to me, who's not an architect, and just making sense and the logic with which he has approached I don't know how many issues over 8 years we've all looked at, but it has indeed been a pleasure to work with him, and we'll keep in touch. I'm going to check to see if he's still following us on channel 2. So I wish him and his family all of the best. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll recognize Commissioner Burroughs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Walters, Jim, thank you for the time you've given me when I've made those calls to you and your counsel and your guidance and your input into the policies that face us on the Economic Development Committee. You are thoughtful and thorough in what you do, and I sincerely appreciate the time and commitment you've given not only the committee, your fellow commissioners, but the community. It's been my pleasure to get to know you, my friend, and I mean that. You are my friend, and I sincerely appreciate all the time you've given each and every one of us and the entire community in the position as commissioner. And on your next chapter, I wish you nothing but great success and happiness and a little bit of leisure. So my best to you, my friend.
Thank you, everybody.
Commissioner Johnson.
Well, Jim, you know, I just can't be outdone by my colleagues now. I'm just going to cut to the chase. That's stick to my character. I'm going to miss you. Quite frankly, your thoughtfulness I have depended upon during our meetings. The old expression, speak softly and carry a big stick. When Jim Walters speaks, everybody listens. And the reason why we listen is because you always have something very thoughtful, very meaningful, and very relevant to add to our conversations. And so I am going to greatly miss you. I enjoy your quiet sense of humor. You do have a great sense of humor. For those that don't know you, I really appreciate that. And just wishing you all the best in the future.
Well, thank you, Harold.
Thank you, committee. Commissioner Walters, we are in your debt. We appreciate all that you have given to us, and we look forward to still being a partner with you in watching and helping this community grow. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Committee, that is the end of our agenda for this evening. There are no other items before us. We are